Well, this is Baruch Fleischman, and we are here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and I'd like to introduce all of us to this particular piece of Lima that we're going to be going through now. The Tiva Gabanos, Al Shar Gabanos, Tiva Rishash, Siddur Rishash on what? Rosh Hashanah. As we are on Rosh Chodesh Elul today, year 5782, let's get started right away. So like we do, we're going to read a little bit of the Rav, just the words of the Rav, and also setup, and then we'll go down into the Tiva Gabanos to look at it a little bit more completely. He says this is the first Rosh. It's Kol Ba'inyan Rosh Hashanah. It's an incorporation of the Inyan of Rosh Hashanah. Let's see what he means. He says the words are like this. Hinei Noida. Ki b'yom Rosh Hashanah HaRishon. On the very first Rosh Hashanah. What that means we'll find out. Nivra Adam HaRishon. This is the day that Adam HaRishon was created. B'yom Rosh Hashanah shal Brias Olam Hoya b'yom Shishi K'noida. Now the actual time of the Brias of Kreisvah was on the sixth day of creation. As a day, he's telling us it's the day of Rosh Hashanah, the first one. If it would have been that on the sixth day when Adam and Chava were created, and they would have held themselves back from a yichud at that time, gam minachet, and then also, of course, they got involved in the wrong attitudes. Mamasin ad leil Shabbos. Mamtim. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Well, mamtim, it would be waiting until the night of Shabbos. At that time, in other words, when Erev Shabbos came. Then they would have been put all of the worlds into the proper order. And meaning what? That there would be no blockages in the flow of the Shefa from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu down to us. So let's go over here and let's look at number Aleph in the Tiva Gabanos. Let me bring the Tiv into full view. And it says like this. Just look at Ki Kodem Sheshesh Yemei Bereshis, before the sixth day of creation. Hoya HaKodesh Baruch Hu Boina Olamos HaMachrivam. Hashem created worlds and destroyed them. Now we've seen this in Medrasha before and different kinds of things. What does that mean? This is the secret of the breaking of the Kalim. The Rashash writes, Kibiyom Yud Zayin Elul, as we understand the count, that is the count of years as we understand them, Hiskil Inyan Shaviris Kalim began the breaking of the Kalim. Biyom Yud Ches Elul, and from Yud Ches Elul onward, B'meshach Sheva Yamin, over the course of the next 7 days, Mesu Sheva HaMalachim, the 7 Malachim died, Ad Yom Kaf Dalad Elul, until the time came of the 24th day of Elul. B'yom Kaf He Elul Melech HaMalach HaMelech HaShmini, this is when the 8th king came out, Shehu Melech HaTikun, who was also known as the Melech HaTikun, Ubo b'yom hiskil sheshesh yemei bereshis, and on that day is when the 6 days of creation began, and the amarim b'Torah ad yom hashishi, that were stated in regards to the Torah until the 6th day. Shabo nivra Adam HaRishon, because on that day Adam HaRishon was created. Zechu yom echod Tishrei, so this is the first day of Tishrei, then this becomes the first day of Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah. That this is the day which will be the beginning of your deeds. In other words, this is the beginning of the world of action, the world of Asiyah. That is, the man now is here who is the main portion, the main point of creation. Let's come over here. He said, Adam HaRishon lo choyachadayim tikun l'cholomah b'shleimus, but at this point, Adam HaRishon had not been able to completely and totally perfect the pattern, tikun ha'olomos, all of the universes that brought Shefa down to him. Adam noilad al yedecha b'zivug ach ba'ach, because Adam HaRishon was created as a result of a yichud that took place ach ba'ach shel zer anpin v'nok. So how does this exactly work, and how can we understand how it is? What is a yichud that takes place where their backs are facing each other? So how is it possible to have a yichud that way? So he says what happens is that is that their creation took place not in this world, as we understand it, by the ability to be able to, they rose up beyond this world to what we call the chest, or the bosom, so to speak, of Abba Ve'ima. The tikkun had to come as a result of Adam Rishon. Because if he would have waited till the night of Shabbos to have the yichud, because then we would see that the yichud between Zer Anpin and the Nukva would take place face to face. Because the main tikkun had to be done through Adam Rishon and Chava, which were actually one entity, which were created with two. The word "do," like in a Latin language, like dos in Spanish, or duo, I think, or due, I forget really what it would be in Italian. And this is really the development of Zer Anpin and his female part. And all of the worlds would come to their tikkun in perfection. But they didn't wait. They didn't wait. Their passion for each other was so great that they couldn't control themselves. Ad Leil Shabbos v'nizdavin. In other words, they were created on the day of the 6 days, but they couldn't wait to make a yichud together until Shabbos came. Ad Leil Shabbos v'nizdavgu b'yom hashish, but instead they made their yichud on the 6th day. She'oz noldol kayin v'hevel, because that's when kayin hevel, as a result of that yichud that took place preliminarily, that's when they caused the birth of kayin v'hevel. But not only that, but they sinned in regards to the commandment of Hashem. They commanded Adam, that's Adam and Chava, Mikol Eitz Hagan Achel to Achel, you can eat from the fruit of any tree. But from that tree you should not eat. Now the question over here is, he says that, what does it mean to eat over here? Because obviously it's not a physical representation, it's something much deeper than that. So what does he mean by eating? But he went and did it anyway. And he ate from the das of Tov Ra. And because of this, the worlds would not be fixed in their proper way. That is, that the worlds would not be organized properly for the flow to come into our world until the end of 6,000 years. Now we see in the Sifra Tzniusa that we're talking about a day for 1,000 years. So these are 6 days of creation, 6,000 years. The 7th day is the Shabbos that's supposed to come, and we're in the middle of the tikkun that is coming to an end. Now here's a little blurb here on the side. Let's pick it up and see what he says. He says, Amnon, and I have it marked in yellow from previous vistas over here, coming overlooked at previously. He said, Bepratos, yesh b'kol shana v'shama zivug prati shel partzef ha'shnasi. So this is a concept they have to think about here. He says that there is a yichud that takes place at Rosh Hashanah every single year, and it's called, when is the yichud? In the parts of Hashnasi, that is in the year, B'Shmini Atzeres, that takes place in Shmini Atzeres. So this means the ultimate yichud that starts at Rosh Hashanah actually takes place on Shmini Atzeres. That's every year. That's what he means by parts of Hashanasi, every year. Shebo na'asach yichud sholem pana b'pana, because at this time is when the proper yichud takes place, face to face. So Chizki Adam Rishon, Af Shetikun as Chalkos, said Adam Rishon, and also besides the fact that he was able to reestablish himself, or to fix himself, but because of the fact that he did it in the first season when he could have, which was that 6th day, V'lo choya b'gan Eden, and he was no longer in Gan Eden because of the fact that he messed up the order, and as a result of that, it didn't take place then. He's no longer in Gan Eden. He was kicked out. L'chein hayichud she'na'asa choya rach chelik moed b'kol zer anpin. So therefore, the yichud that takes place, and that is taking place right now, is only a small proportion of the moed mikol zer anpin, of all of zer anpin. So it's a small portion that keeps taking place, and it takes 6,000 years. So since zer anpin we understand is 6 midos, so therefore, looking at zer anpin, and you imagine that zer anpin is 6 kitzvos in the formation of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, and Hod, and that's in the formation of 3 lines, but that there are 1,000 duplicate lines going away from the original date. That's where we're at. It's the same thing going on over and over again, but only a very small portion of them are being mesukan. B'kol shana misaknim parts of echud. Every year, one of the partsufim is rebuilt. Because what he did was he was able to do, he's in the most outside, in other words, the most farthest away from the ultimate truth of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. That's what he's able to fix. He's able to fix those things which are least related to. So that we start, every year we start moving closer and closer to the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu through our prayers and through the holidays. And this is what they say until 6,000 years go by. And he says, and in that period of time, there's going to be a complete tikkun. Let's look and see if we can look at a little bit more, and that will be the shir today. But this is a good introduction to understand what's going on about what we're about to proceed to. We're going to get to much more detail. About Yan Chet B'atzas Nachash, because of the Chet, of the advice that they took from the Nachash, Hu ve'ishto, that is Adam Rishon and his wife. Nachash bal al Chava, so he came actually, he says it's a lashon of intercourse. He actually came into Chava, and this is a place I think that needs to be explained more. Hitil ba'zahama, and he put a certain type of poison inside of her. Kodem shenizdavgu Adam v'Chava, before that time. So understand what we're talking about is this tremendous desire, this taiva between the two of them that really got into, and he's saying into her particularly. Why? What do we know? Chava represents Malchus. Malchus is the most exterior part of any parts of, meaning that it's most exposed to what is outside of it. And in this world, there's a lot of danger outside of it. And as a result of that, she let it in. Machmas Kain Yotzu Kain V'Hevel, and because of this reason, Kain and Hevel came out. Because of the fact that they did not have the yichud at the right time, the yichud became a yichud of taiva, not love. Taiva, maybe love's not the right word for not mitzvah. So he said, why? Because an idea came into them that allowed them to just pursue their taivos. So that he came first and he put this inside of Chava. And I think it's really important to understand, because the nature of the woman is like a house, and she protects everything that's in it. But the house is also exposed to the weather on the outside. If the weather becomes overpowering, it can break down the house. So this is the same thing true of types. So he said, Kanira. So we see this in different places. And now let's look a little bit down here. He says, Adam v'chava v'ishto. So let me see if we got this down right. I'll read it again. Adam v'chava v'ishto. Avro al sivoi mikol eitzagan achol ta'achol. So that was the commandment, don't eat that tree. And what did the Nachash say to them? Started playing with their minds. No mos to musin, you're not going to die because of this. And even though we understand that Adam himself, he's the one that was commanded, not Chava. So he says, in any case, because she's actually a part of him. They were one being with two faces. Whether you say that they were actually two completely different systems, which is really the way that the Rab deals with, that she was an attachment to him. But Zonav really mean that she was attached to his name. So anyway, the Kamosha Darsh Chazal, like the rabbi says, after he gave her this advice, he came into her. So he said that Nachash married me. She married herself to Taiva. And that's what happened. Now that whole thing is a very difficult part because it's dealt with. The Zohar says straight out that it does not mean that they actually had sex the way that we understand the word, that this is something different. What about this poison? It took place before they had yichud. According to what is implied by the order of the what is written in the Torah, the after the chet that took place with that, then it writes that that they lived together, the man and his woman. The Chava, Ishto, v'talcher v'teled as Kayim, etc., and she got pregnant and she gave birth to Cain. V'tais the lettuce, and then she went on and she gave birth to Hevel. Now let's see it just a little bit more. So it said, "Mekevin shehikdim anachash lahata zechama b'chava kodem shenizdavgu ada b'chava." So since the poison was already in Chava before the yichud, nimsa she'achar kach. So it comes out like this, that after this, kasher nizdavgu, when they had a yichud, kavar koyakayim v'hevel mu'arabim tov v'ra, they were already mixed up in tov v'ra. There was a little bit of them was tov, a little bit that was raw. Because the good part came from Adam B'Chava, who were creations of Hashem, who meant to be the good. But the bad came into them from this poison that came from the snake. That's the poison of the Hivya. So let's see what it is that's going to come out, and we'll see this a little bit more tomorrow. This is Baruch Fleischman.